Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So if you saw my video that I did last week, you'd have heard me speaking about some of the challenges that come with being an agency system. And one of the big challenges, apart from trying to find shifts, is having to deal with earning money on a weekly basis and trying to manage all of that. So in this video, I'm going to be covering some tips that you can use on how to manage your money as a weekly earner and how to make sure that you have enough money to cover your expenses at the end of the month, because unfortunately our bills are on a monthly basis, most of them, and also to make sure that you enjoy life, because you are working for your moolah, so you obviously need to enjoy it. The process of budgeting is one that is quite challenging because there are many temptations that come along the way. At some point in time, you're going to realize that you're spending more money than you're actually earning, and this is the term that people usually call living above your means, which is a real and very evident thing, especially for young professionals, because we're not used to having so much money in our bank accounts or within our vicinity. As a result, we sometimes can get a little crazy, a little excited if we do not have the right skills to be able to manage this money. As a result, it's important for you to have a fixed plan, or what is known as a budget, on how to organize and manage your money, because trust me, that money will quickly come in as it's quickly going out. The first tip that I can give you is have a written budget for everything that you want to spend your money on. Because trust me, those mental notes that we make to ourselves that, oh, when I get money, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to buy this, those are not stable, and they will continually change based on the things that are enticing you. You see a new car, you see a new pair of shoes, etc. Your mental shopping list gets longer and longer the more things that entice you. As a result, having something that is written down keeps you accountable, and it keeps you focused, and you will easily not fall into the trap of, oh, you go shopping, then you see this nice thing, then you want to buy it. So having something that is stable, that is written down, that is unchanging, will make it easier for you to stick to your budget. The same way that we tell ourselves in nursing, if it's not written, it is not done. The same falls for your budget. If it is not written down, it will not get done. Thus, having something written down will keep you accountable of your monthly expenses, needs, and wants. Talking about needs and wants, you need to clearly separate your needs from your wants. Trust me, when that notification comes in telling you that your money has come in, the line between your needs and wants can easily blur, because you get excited, you think you have a lot of money and that you can spend a lot and splurge and so forth. However, it is important for you to know your priorities. That is why it's important for you to have written your budget, because your budget clearly gives you an idea of what is important to be paid for first, and the rest can fall after. The easiest way to determine what your needs and wants based on your spending is to look at your bank statement. Or if you're not a bank statement person and use a lot of cash, maybe it's important for you to just do a month where you do your normal routine of spending and just keep a track of what you're spending your money on. Because if you've got your bank statement, it gives you a record of what you spend your money on. So you get to look at, okay, this month I spend this much on money, I spend this much on going out, I spend this money on rent, food, etc. So having a record of all the debit orders and all the little swipes and taps that you've been doing will give you a clear indication of what you're spending your money on. And looking at those lists, you'll be able to determine, okay, these are the needs and these are the wants that I have. A simple way to differentiate these two is a need is something that you need to live, and it is something that you must pay for, whereas your want is something that you like, it makes your life pleasurable, but it is not something that you need to spend money on right now. So as a result, for most people, their needs will be their rent, their water, their food, their electricity, transport money, and maybe some other debit orders that they need to do, for example, if it's school fees and so forth. Whereas your want is your subscriptions to your Spotify, to your Netflix, going out with friends. It's not something that you need to have to be able to survive. You can live a comfortable life without going out. Just saying. So once you have looked at your bank statement or the list of your monthly expenses, and you've differentiated which ones are your needs and your wants, you can use what is known as the 50-30-20 rule. So essentially, the 50-30-20 rule is designed to maintain a rational balance into where and how your weekly earnings are distributed. So it states that 50% of your income should be dedicated towards your needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% towards your savings. So for example, if you've got 100 Rand, that means 50 Rand should be covering your expenses, 30 Rand is going to be covering your wants, and 20 Rand is going to be covering your savings. So if the things that you determine as your needs are not covered by the 50% of your salary, it means that one, you are living above your means, or some things are really not needs and you can live without them. However, if you're not living above your means and also there are really needs that you need to cover, then obviously that means the cash flow that you have is not enough to cover your expenses, and that means that some of the money that you're going to spend on your wants will have to be used to cover your needs. As a result, this ratio or this percentage rationale can be changed to cover your current circumstances. However, this is just the basic idea of how you need to be allocating your money to make sure that you are covering your needs, you are having some money to enjoy life and cover your wants, and also having some money set aside for savings, for emergency funds, and for you to have money in the future, and so forth. So the fourth tip that I can give you about earning money on a weekly basis is you need to know your paydays. For someone who is working as an agency, most agencies, they'll pay you out the following Thursday for the shifts that you work the previous week. As a result, you will know that every Thursday I'm going to be having an income, and because agencies can tell you what your hourly rate is and the deductions that they take from your pay and so forth, it is very easy for you to determine how much money you're going to be getting on a weekly basis. As a result, if you know your paydays, you can plan out when you're going to be paying for your expenses. So if some expenses can be paid on a weekly basis, then you can determine on this day or in this week I'm going to be covering these expenses, and the following week I can cover other expenses, and so forth. So as a result, knowing when your paydays are is important for you to be able to plan your life and also to plan when you're going to be paying for your things. Because if you're not planning carefully around your paydays, you're going to reach days that you need to pay for something and you not have enough money to cover for those things. And also because you're a weekly earner, you're not going to be getting a large lump sum of money at the end of the month. That means every single week you need to be allocating money that is going to be covering your expenses. As a result, if you know when your paydays are, you're not going to miss your deadlines for your dates and so forth, because you would have planned accordingly. Okay, so you've determined and you understand what your needs and your wants are. You know about the 50-30-20 rule. You've got a written budget. Now it is time for you to start paying for your expenses. I like to use what is known as the pocket rule. So the pocket rule essentially is saying that for every expense that you're going to be paying for, there is a certain amount of money that is allocated towards that expense on a weekly basis. For example, if at the end of the month I need to be paying 100 Rand towards my rent, that means every single week for the 4 weeks of the month or the 5 weeks of the month, depending how long the month is, we use 4 weeks as the general idea for most weeks. So that means for every single week, I need to be saving 25 Rand that is allocated towards my rent, because at the end of the month, I need to have the full 100 Rand to pay for my rent. So essentially, it is about taking your monthly or your end of month expenses, breaking them down into smaller chunks that you're going to be saving up towards on a weekly basis. So this is to ensure that you're not overwhelmed by the large amounts of money that you need to have at the end of the month, because on a weekly basis, your weekly pay is not always going to cover your full monthly expenses. So that means you need to be planning for the future payments that are going to need to happen. So I'll give you guys a small snippet of my budget Excel sheet on how I sort of plan my expenses so that I ensure that at the end of the month, I have enough money. So the general idea is I will list out all my needs, then comes my wants, and then my saving goals. So once I've listed my needs, my saving goals, and my wants, then I will write down how much those things are going to cost me. So my rent is going to be 4,000 Rand. Then my transport on a monthly basis, I'm going to be spending 1,500. Then for food, I'm going to be spending 1,500. Then I'll go through everything that I'm going to be covering that month and make sure that I've allocated how much the price tag for that thing is. Then I total it. Once I've totaled it, I can see how much I need to earn that month. Being someone who earns on a weekly basis, you can sort of you can sort of estimate how much you will earn at the end of the month, because you can calculate, okay, if I do this many shifts, that means I'll have this amount of money at the end of the month. Because the nice thing about working as an agency is our salary is not fixed, so you can make as much money as you want based on the number of shifts that you do. So if I look at my expenses and it says I need to have 10,000 rand at the end of the month, then those would tell me that I need to work for at least 6 to 8 shifts for me to cover that money, or so forth. Just an example. So obviously this will be affected by the number of shifts that you do, but in most cases you can control how many shifts you can do, so you can determine how much money you're going to earn that month. Obviously if you get more, then it's okay. If you get less, you also need to have a contingency plan for that, and in most cases your wants are the ones that are going to suffer. So anyway, you've looked at your needs, wants, and your saving goals, and you've determined this is the amount of money that I need to be earning at the end of the month, and you determine if I work this number of shifts, I can earn this money. Cool. So we are set. So then I take that certain need. Let's take its rent. Rent is 4,000, and I've got 4 weeks till the deadline for me to pay the rent at the end of the month. So that means every single week I need to be saving 500 rand. So then I do that. Week 1 I need to save 500, week 2, week 3, week 4. Then I do that for every single one of my needs, my wants, and my financial goals. So that will determine how much I need to be saving up for all of those expenses. So then I total week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 separately. So it will tell me in week 1 I need to be saving this amount of money, in week 2 I need to save up this money, in week 3 I need to save up this money, in week 4 I need to save up this money, so that I have all the money that I need to cover my expenses at the end of the month. As a result, you will now have a breakdown of how much you need to actually be earning in a week for you to be able to cover your monthly expenses. So in most cases, this goes well. In the week, you earn exactly how much you need to cover those expenses. You put that money away. How you save that money or how you store that money is up to you. You can do it cash, or you can keep it in your account. However, if you're going to keep it in your account, try to put it away from an account that you have very easy access to, because trust me, emergencies will come up, and it will be very easy for you to try to grab money from that pocket of yours that is being kept for your monthly expenses, and this will lead to you not having enough money at the end of the month, and so forth. So try to keep it somewhere where you don't have easy access to. However, sometimes in some weeks you're not going to make up enough money to cover your expenses for that week, so that at the end of the month you have enough. This will lead you to now having to change week 2's expenses and how it's set up. So for example, in week 1 I don't earn enough money to cover my weekly expenses or my monthly expenses. Then I'll tell myself in week 2 I need to add more money so that I cover up week 1's loss, if that makes sense. So for example, if in week 1 I was supposed to save 500 rand for my rent, however I didn't make enough money and I was only able to save up 300 rand. So that means in week 2 I need to save up 700 rand. The 500 for week 2 plus an additional 200 to cover week 1's expenses. So sometimes you will have to do that, where 1 week you have to earn more to cover up the previous week, and also because in some weeks you might not get enough shifts to cover your expenses. As a result, you have to make it up the following week or the 3rd week, and so forth, as long as you make sure that you have enough money to cover your expenses at the end of the month. Sometimes at the end of the month you're not going to make enough shifts, and as a result that means you're not going to have enough money to cover all your expenses, and that's where you have to make some sacrifices, where you have to pay for the needs that you really need. Like you need to have a roof over your head, you need to have money to go to work, and you need to have food. Then other things you really have to put aside for the following month. So essentially that's how I plan my life and how I save up my money to make sure that I'm covering for my monthly expenses. I hope it made sense. So after that mouthful of explaining how the pocket rule works, the last tip that I can give you is use what is known as the 10-10-10 rule. So what the 10-10 rule essentially is about is you ask yourself when you're about to make a financial decision, how will the consequences of this decision that I'm making now affect me in 10 minutes, in 10 months, and in 10 years? So this is a quick and easy way to be able to evaluate your short-term and long-term goals and how they'll be affected by your financial decisions in the moment. For example, you're in the shop, you see these really cute shoes that you just love, that you're just going to die if you don't get them. And this mostly happens when we see sales. If you see these shoes, this handbag, or whatever fits your balls or fancies your taste, whatever, if you buy these shoes, how will the financial expenditure that you're doing right now affect you in the next 10 minutes? In the next 10 minutes, sure, you're going to be ecstatic, you're going to be happy that you have spent this money buying these shoes. But in the next 10 months, you might have lost out on an opportunity because you use that money instead of saving up for your emergency fund, or you don't have enough money in your emergency fund to be covering for your expenses should you lose your job and so forth. And in the next 10 years, maybe you could have been further in life, but you're not because you used that money that you should have saved instead of you bought shoes. So this is just a quick way to sort of trigger your brain to say, do I really need to get this thing? Obviously, we're not meant to be stingy with our money. We are earning money, we are working so that we can enjoy life. However, some decisions that we make at the spur of the moment can really have long and short-term effects on how our financial situation is going to look. So it's very important that whatever decision that you're going to be making, it is calculated and you're also looking at how it's going to affect you in the long run, and not just wanting that instant gratification of I bought myself new shoes. Trust me, if you plan properly, you would definitely be able to afford the things that you need. You might not get them right in the moment, but you would definitely be getting them sometime soon. So do not always rush to get that instant gratification. So I really hope that this video was helpful, whether you are someone who earns on a weekly basis or even on a monthly basis. I feel these tips can affect or help anyone who is earning some income, even if it's pocket money, just for you to be aware of how you spend your money, because trust me, your financial habits affect a lot of things about your lifestyle and how comfortable or difficult it is. So it is important that you're making the best decisions for you. So until next week, Friday, 12 p.m. South African time, have an awesome one. Bye, guys.